Okay, I am live. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you so much for watching. So I had a comment on one of my previous videos, the video about who are the Proud Boys. Like, I didn't really know who they were, so I did a couple of quick searches to try and figure it out. And a lot of the stuff that I found came from, media outlets and the Southern Poverty Law Center and all of that. And somebody commented on the video, and I'm going to read the comment and then I'm going to give my opinion on it. So I really appreciate the comment. Here it goes. If you are racist, you can't join. So they're talking about the Proud Boys. They're saying if you're racist, you cannot join the Proud Boys. So if you are racist, you can't join. Any member revealed to be a closet racist is automatically kicked out of the Proud Boys. The leader is an Afro-Cuban dude, but the mainstream media is so schizophrenic they will call them white supremacists while showing an image of brown guys on the screen. To be honest, I've never seen a group so intentionally misrepresented. I first heard about them when I was living in India because there is a chapter there. I came back to the US and everybody is crazy now. Left-wing people call everyone they disagree with Nazis, while right-wing people call their opponents communists. Almost everything you'll find will be made with a political agenda. They tell you what to think instead of just giving the facts. I would start with their website to get information and then contact them to ask a member what they are about. If I want to learn about anyone, I just do this now because the media lies too much. So I really appreciate this person's perspective. And I totally understand why they feel like they can't trust the media because there are so many lies and such. But you also can't 100% trust the people to tell you directly what they're up to and to be like 100% honest about that. So simply asking the Proud Boys, like, are you racist? I don't think is going to get you very far because the founder, he only stepped down as the founder and he said he was only doing it basically because he was forced to. So I think that they intentionally chose somebody who would be seen as a minority, like they said it's an Afro-Latino person or whatever. But anyway, the link that the person included here, I clicked on it and I want to read a little bit from that link. But like I said, you can't just ask a certain group. Like that would be like going to the KKK or one of those other groups and asking them straight up, are you racist? They're likely, excuse me, they're likely to say no. They might use some other euphemism for racism, like, oh, we're not racist, we're just separatists or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, like, the Proud Boys have said things that would make most reasonable people put their group into the category of racist because they okay, I'm going to go into a little bit more of what I found online before I give my opinion. So sorry about that. So this is from the Proud Boys themselves. This is from the link that the person put in their comment. So it says, the Proud Boys are a men's organization founded in 2016 by Vice Media co-founder Gavin McInnes. McInnes has described the Proud Boys as a pro-Western fraternal organization for men who refuse to refuse to apologize for creating the modern world, aka Western chauvinists. So the Proud Boys' values center on the following tenets. I'm going to read off a few things: minimal government, maximum freedom, anti-political correctness. That means they don't want you to be politically correct. Anti-drug war, closed borders, anti-racial guilt, but anti-racism, pro-free speech, like the First Amendment, pro-gun rights, Second Amendment, glorifying the entrepreneur, venerating the housewife, reinstating a spirit of Western chauvinism. So through these, our my God, they're just, I'm not going to read all of this stuff. It's all about like what you have to declare. Okay, I'll read it, whatever. Though these are our central tenets, all that is required to become a Proud Boy is that a man declare he is a, quote, a Western chauvinist who refuses to apologize for creating the modern world, end quote. We do not discriminate based on race or sexual orientation or preference. We are not an ismist or phobic that fits the left's narrative. We truly believe that the West is the best and welcome those who believe in the same tenets as us. We have an international reach with members spanning the globe. If you have any questions or would like to get in contact with your local chapter, feel free to contact us directly via our staff page, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so it obviously makes no sense because first they harp on the fact that this is a fraternal group, this is a brotherhood of men who are not going to apologize for creating the modern world and they're Western chauvinists, but at the same time, they say that they don't discriminate based on, let's see. So we do not discriminate based on race or sexual orientation or preference. So they say they don't discriminate based on race and sexual orientation or preference, but you have to be a man to be in this group. And it's anti-racial guilt. So despite the fact that there were many things done based on racism, like the transatlantic slave trade and many other things throughout history, they're not going to feel guilty about that. They make no apologies for that. They're anti-racial guilt. So you should not feel badly about any type of racist policies or anything that has happened. I mean, I see how they're trying to spin this and they're really trying to toe the line and make it seem like they are an inclusive group. I disagree. I just wholeheartedly disagree. I feel like their arm was twisted and that's why they had to allow non-white people. But really, in terms of like who they think should take credit for creating the modern world, I don't think that they believe it was non-white people, you know, who contributed to that. I think they are like proud of being white and that's what they, you know, that they want to, sorry. They're proud of being white and they feel like it is white culture that produced the modern world and they don't want to apologize for that. That's the thing that I feel they are kind of tiptoeing around, but when it comes down to it, that's really how they feel. So aside from that, the fact that they appointed an Afro-Hispanic person to be their leader, it's just so loaded because I am an Afro-Hispanic person. So I'm very familiar with Hispanic culture and exactly how disgustingly racist it is. I feel like Hispanic culture is more overtly racist than American culture. And American culture is pretty fucking racist. But Hispanic culture, somehow it's like people seem to think that it's okay to talk trash about dark skin and African features and that whole thing. It's like it's accepted to, even if you are a Black person, to look down on Blackness and anything that is of African nature. So you have to understand, though, who Hispanic people are. Like, yes, there are some Hispanic people who identify as white, and rightly so. I mean, there are some Hispanic people that are European ancestry. There are some that are of African ancestry, like me. And then there are the vast majority who are a mixture of well, a lot of them are mestizos, but even the mestizos, which we say they are of indigenous and European blood, they have African blood in them too. So majority of Hispanic people are a mixture of European, African, and indigenous, but they like to kind of deny any African try to maybe kind of deny the indigenous and try to identify more as white in the same way that a lot of people in America do. So this person being Afro-Latino and deciding to join a group like the Proud Boys does not make me believe that the Proud Boys is any less racist. That's my whole point. I don't think that just because they have a leader who is Afro-Latino, that means that they are less racist. I mean, anyone who's paying attention knows that the district attorney who refused to bring charges in the Breonna Taylor case was a Black person. So it's not like just because you have a Black person in charge, that means that like racist shit isn't going to happen. That's just not true, unfortunately. Not all people, it's just not true. So that's that. But here's an article. I do want to give other perspectives on the Proud Boys, but I don't want to make it seem like they are in some way this like inclusive group or they are a force for good. They have a terrible reputation, and I still believe that they are a racist group. I don't care that they have an Afro-Latino leader. I still feel that they stand for hate, division, and this sort of like hierarchy in society that I disagree with. They obviously seem to believe that like men are at a certain status and yeah, they should venerate the housewife, but like not all women want to be housewives. You know what I mean? It's just so offensive. But I'm gonna go through this article from NBC News. Latinos must confront ingrained anti-Black racism amid George Floyd protests. That's what some people are urging, apparently. So white presenting Latinos should use this time to reconcile with their privilege and acknowledge that Black people are already part of their community. So that's what some young Afro-Latinos are saying. This article is from June 2020, and it's by Nicole Acevedo. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll read some of it. Anna Sands, 26, marched for about 10 miles with a sprained ankle on Monday in Washington, D.C. to protest the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis and to demand accountability for the dehumanization of Black people at the hands of law enforcement. But Sands, an Afro-Latino from Washington, who works with women overcoming domestic and sexual violence, said it's also time for something else, for her fellow Latinos to confront the racism and anti-Blackness within the community. Proximity to Eurocentricity and whiteness is how our ancestors survived through oppression, a painful legacy that still prevails and needs to be eradicated, Sands said. Although she was shaken by military-grade helicopters that flew like a tornado, the turbulent protests did not stop long overdue discussions about anti-Black Latino racism and discrimination. White presenting Latinos should use this time to reconcile with the privilege their light skin gives them in systems tainted with white supremacy and figure out ways to use it in a productive way. So basically she's trying to say that Hispanic people who identify as white or who are seen as white should use that privilege to help Black people. And I hear a lot of people saying that about not just Hispanic people who identify as white, but other white people, and that they should use their privilege to help Black people. And I agree 100%. Obviously, I'm not trying to force anybody to do anything that they're not comfortable with, but stand up for the underdog. Like that is something that has always been so ingrained in me just as a person. Like, so I encourage everybody to do that. Like, it doesn't matter who's being oppressed. You stand up for them, you help them, because nobody deserves that crap, you know? So anyway, the article is very good. I do want to read a little bit more from it. So Jasmine Haywood, an Afro-Latina who has researched anti-Black Latino racism, told NBC News that Millennial Latinos like Sands are looking to break cycles of internalized racism and the ways Latinos perpetuate and uphold white supremacy. White Latinos need to realize that our oppression is bound up and intertwined with the oppression of the Black community. Until they are liberated, until they are free from injustices and oppression, we will never be liberated. So that's what Haywood said. Haywood said anti-Blackness sentiments are ingrained in our cultures, in part because generations of Latinos were taught to seek partners that have a certain European or white phenotype or lighter skin to lighten their family trees. George Zimmerman, the son of an Afro-Peruvian mother and a white father, shot and killed Trayvon Martin, an unarmed Black teenager. Okay. I didn't know that that his mom was Afro-Peruvian. I did not know that. Anyway, George Zimmerman, the son of an Afro-Peruvian mother and a white father, shot and killed Trayvon Martin, an unarmed Black teenager. Geronimo Yanez, a Latino police officer, fatally shot Philando Castile, who was 32 years old, during a traffic stop. In a research paper that she co-authored, Haywood described those instances as, quote, violent white supremacy being deployed through white passing U.S. Latinx bodies, end quote. I'm going to repeat that one more time. So she described it as violent white supremacy being deployed through white passing U.S. Latinx bodies. So these are people that look white, they can pass for white, and they're carrying out violent white supremacy acts, acts of violence. And they're doing this. There are Latinos, but they're doing this and they're getting away with it, I think, because they look white. So nearly 60 million Latinos in the United States, most of whom can trace their heritages to Latin America and the Caribbean. A 2016 Pew Research survey reported that a quarter of all U.S. Latinos identify as Afro-Latino or Afro-Caribbean or of African descent with roots in Latin America, like me. So I don't know if I mentioned it, but my family's from Honduras, and that's why I consider myself Afro-Latino, Afro-Latina, Afro-Caribbean, because the Caribbean is where my people are from. Honduras, El Salvador, Jamaica, St. Vincent, I don't know, all those places in that area. This article is very interesting, and it just speaks volumes to what I've experienced and what I hope for the future. So I'm actually going to continue with it. Jose Vilson, a math teacher in New York City who happens to be a Black Latino man, grew up visiting the Dominican Republic during the Christmas holidays. When you go to Santo Domingo, which is the capital, almost everybody there is about as dark, if not darker, than I am. You can obviously see they're descendants of enslaved people, he told the NBC News. While Latinos largely acknowledge their ethnicity and African roots dating to Latin America's colonial period when mixing occurred among indigenous people, white Europeans, slaves from Africa, and Asians. Okay, I missed that part. I didn't know that I could possibly have Asian in me too. Many still struggle to consider themselves as Black. And that's true. There are okay. I have an uncle who he's passed away, but he had darker skin than me. And he would say, no soy negro, soy Latino. Okay, that just means I'm not Black, I'm Latino. Okay. Yeah. So in Pew's survey, 39% of Afro-Latinos identified as white, while only 18% identified as Black. Even more Afro-Latinos, 24%, said their race was Hispanic, which Hispanic is an ethnicity, not a race. So they don't see the correlation of how ethnicity and race are two different aspects of their identity. This is what Sands said, adding that some feel that their Latinx history and culture will be erased if they identify as Black or white, which is not the case. And again, is possibly erasing the experiences of Black and Indigenous people. So honestly, I feel that my Hispanic culture is erased when I identify as Black, because given my accent and everything, I identify as Black. People just see me as Black American, and they really have no clue that I'm Hispanic. And that's fine. I mean, it's not like everybody needs to know what my whole history is, but I can see why people might not want to erase a certain aspect of who they are and why they might identify as a certain thing or another. So continuing, at the same time, Latinos of every color face overt and subtle racism and discrimination, whether they were born in the US or not. Hate crimes against Latinos are on the rise. Many Latinos are harassed and even arrested for speaking Spanish in public, and they continue to face practical roadblocks to gain access to healthcare and economic and educational opportunities. So whether you're a Latino that identifies as Black or white or Hispanic, Latinos still face racism and discrimination in America because they are Latinos. So this is the last part of the article, which is Afro-Latinos first seen as Black. And yeah. So despite their ethnic identification or the language they may speak, Afro-Latinos are first seen as Black to white America, unlike white-presenting Latinos, Haywood said, adding that people witnessed a prime example of that discrepancy during the recent arrest of a reporter. And I remember this. Oh my gosh. So the reporter's name is Omar Jimenez, and he's a dark-skinned Latino like me. Let me just read the article. CNN correspondent Omar Jimenez, whose mother is Black and whose father identifies as Colombian, was arrested on live TV last week while he was covering the protests in Minneapolis, even though his media credentials appeared visible. A colleague, fellow correspondent Josh Campbell, a white reporter also on the ground, was not arrested. I mean, they have video footage. So I want to say according to CNN, but how about according to me? Because I saw the video footage. Omar was arrested and Josh was not. Back to the article. He's an Afro-Latino male, and his Latinidad didn't save him in that situation. He was still arrested because he's a Black man, period, said Haywood, who works at Lumina Foundation, an Indianapolis-based organization seeking to expand educational opportunities for people. Julio Ricardo Varela, founder of Futuro Media's Latino Rebels and a white presenting Latino himself, thinks it is crucial that Latinos recognize racism in their histories, not just as a U.S. issue. So racism is not a U.S. issue. Like I said a while ago, racism is super prevalent in the Hispanic community. White passing Latinos really need to come to terms with their privilege in the context of anti-Blackness, whether they were born in the US, Latin America, or the Caribbean. And they need to just accept the reality that we also come from a racist society that is embedded in white supremacy. That is what Varela said. So if you look at Latin America in general, we literally carry around that baggage and bring that system with us. Varela said. There's been really uncomfortable, real conversations going on for years around this issue, and I'm actually encouraged that this could be the tipping point. But the important observation here is that right now, Black voices need to be amplified. Haywood compared white supremacy to air, You can't help but breathe it in and be a part of it. But she said acknowledging one's racial biases is the first step in confronting anti-Black racism. Oh, I agree with all of this so very much. So very much. So Sen said a way to do that is by starting to pay attention to the ways in which Latinos fail, intentionally or unintentionally, to acknowledge that Black people are already part of their community. There have been a lot of conversations and images about Latinos in solidarity with Black folks, but the fact is that there's already Black folks in our own communities. It's really hypocritical to see that because they're failing to recognize the presence of Black folks in our own communities. So Wilson said it is important to remember how interconnected so many of our struggles are. The focus on anti-Blackness does not mean that we don't care about kids in cages. Of course not. Similarly, we understand that slavery also manifested in so many Asian Americans who had built railroads in this country. We understand that the prison system was exponentially built on the backs of Black people through the 13th Amendment. The more we can hone in on some of the worst offenses, we can find ways to alleviate all kinds of different aggressions and oppressions. Okay, so that I think was a really, really well done article that kind of brings to light some of the and I don't want to say that people disregard racism in the Hispanic community. I think people just don't know. Just like when I was a kid, people didn't know that like Hispanic people could be Black. So I can remember people being very confused about my identity when I would say that I was Black Hispanic. They'd be like, but are you Black or are you Hispanic? And I'm like, both. Like my parents are Black like me, but they speak Spanish first. They learned Spanish from their parents, and then they learned English in America. But that's just, it seemed weird to people because it was like, they're not used to people with skin as dark. Well, when I was a kid, they weren't used to people with skin as dark as mine speaking Spanish. And then Big Papi became a really famous baseball player, and it's like, okay, now you see a really dark skinned person who has like Spanish accent, and you know. But anyway, like I said, also I had an uncle who did not identify as Black. So as far as bringing this back to the Proud Boys and them appointing an Afro-Latino as their leader, I know that that's all for show, for one, because McInnes did not want to step down. He only stepped down after the terrible incident that took place with the person who was a member of the Proud Boys, and then he was kicked out. And I think the only reason they made the rules on anti-racism and all of that is because of that incident. But they still seem to hold strong to their anti-Muslim views and their misogynistic views. So I still don't have a positive opinion of the Proud Boys. If I'm misjudging them, let me know in the comment section. Send me a link that proves that they are a positive organization. Right now, I just think that they promote division and this like hierarchy in society that I just totally disagree with. I don't give a shit if the hierarchy is one race like above another. I think it's bullshit. If it's one gender above another, again, bullshit. I just don't believe in a hierarchy of people. So I don't like the Proud Boys. I don't like what they stand for. I don't think it's just the media painting them in a bad light. I think they are actually a bad organization. You should not join. They are terrible, and they will soon be classified as a hate group if they don't slow the fuck down. So that's my opinion of the Proud Boys. But I do appreciate other people's perspectives. So let me know if you have a different opinion. Thank you so much for watching.